Hello, I am Dr. Stickney, and welcome to Ask the Vet Live. Over the next 30 minutes, we are going to answer questions that you have, talk about events that are going on at Spay Neuter Network, and any other things that we need to talk about. As we are going along here, I have several questions that were sent in to me ahead of time. Please type in any questions that you would like answered while we are talking, and I will be sure to address those. So the first thing you may notice is I do not have my typical background in the background. I am at an undisclosed location today and broadcasting from there. But that doesn't mean we're not going to cover what we need to cover. And the first thing that I would like to tell everybody is that this is National Lost Pet Prevention Month. And the most important thing that means for us in what we do is that you want to have your pets microchipped. If you have a microchipped pet, your odds of finding your pet if it is lost dramatically increase. The numbers go up to about 1 in 2 dogs will be found that are lost. If they are microchipped, they'll be reunited with their owners. And if you're a cat, the odds of your owners being found drop all the way down to 1%, just over 1%. So microchipping our pets is one of the best things that we can do to have them reunited with us if they get lost. And we are able to do that at Spay Neuter Network, and it just takes a few minutes, and they are microchipped, and that is a microchip that is in them for life. Then it is about the size of a grain of rice, and it goes between their shoulder blades under the skin, and you don't even know it's there. But if any pet is lost and then found by a rescue organization or ends up in an animal shelter, one of the first things that they will do is scan that pet for a microchip. And if that microchip number pops up, they will call a phone number, and then they will from that phone number, they'll find who the pet is registered to and be able to get that to you. Get the pet back to you, reach out to you and let you know that it has been found, which is always good news when you are worried about a lost pet. A little personal story. I was heading home one day, and there was this really nice Belgian Malinois just walking down the sidewalk. So he certainly didn't look like he belonged where he was. So I picked him up and we scanned him, and it turns out that he was in the same neighborhood, a dog from the same neighborhood that I live in. The owner had no idea he was missing. And we were able to immediately get him right back to where he belonged, and that prevented him from being lost for a long time, getting hit by a car, or getting himself into trouble some other way. So that microchip really made a difference in that case. So I would encourage everyone to get a microchip for your pet. The other thing that I really want to touch base on here first off the bat is that 4th of July is this weekend, and fireworks and pets do not mix. Pets become very, very scared of fireworks. Some of them have an extreme phobia to fireworks. So we want to make sure that for July 4th, our pets are inside, away from any of those loud noises and flashing lights, so that they can be kept as calm as possible. All right, let's take a look at some questions here while we are waiting for some other questions to come in. So Brian has written in to say that I recently learned that my cat's current flea and tick medication does not protect against heartworms. We live in the South where mosquitoes are common, and he spends time on our screened-in porch. I've seen that heartworm preventatives for cats require a prescription, sometimes along with a negative heartworm test. Since my cat had a veterinary appointment about a month ago but was not tested for heartworms, would he need another exam or heartworm test before starting a preventative? Also, is year-round heartworm prevention recommended for cats, even if they are primarily indoors? All right, this is a fantastic question. So basically, we're saying that we have a cat. It's not currently on heartworm preventative, and we want to get it started. Is that okay to do? And the answer is yes. We recommend that all dogs and cats be on year-round heartworm prevention. And the reason that we say year-round is because many places, especially in the South, mosquitoes can still be around all year long. There are areas where it never gets cold enough for them to completely disappear. And it only takes one infected mosquito to give your dog or your cat heartworms. So we want to be on prevention all the year around. It used to be that if someone lived up in Montana, they would only do heartworm preventative during the summer months when there were more mosquitoes. Well, now with people traveling and pets traveling, it turned out that at some point in time, some heartworm positive dogs ended up there, and the mosquitoes now are now infected with heartworms and able to spread that to the animals up there. So regardless of where you live, you want to be on year-round heartworm prevention. Now, regarding the cat, cats are a little bit different than dogs when it comes to having a heartworm infection. Cats are not the natural host for heartworms. Heartworms like dogs and dog-like animals like coyotes and wolves. That's where heartworms want to be. So if a cat is bitten by a mosquito that has heartworms, most of the time, the cat's immune system will kill those heartworms, and those heartworms will die because they're not in the right place. However, occasionally, some of those worms will survive. One or two of them will survive and make their way to your cat's heart. And there's very few of them that will make it. A cat with a heartworm infection typically has only one or two worms in their heart, unlike the dozens and hundreds that dogs can have. So, because of that, heartworm testing in cats is often negative, even if they did have a heartworm, meaning the test will not show that they have heartworms, because that test depends on a chemical that the female heartworm secretes. And if you have only one heartworm in your cat and it's a male heartworm, he's not secreting anything for the test to detect. So you'll have a negative test. So therefore, we don't recommend testing cats for heartworm disease prior to placing them on prevention, because if it comes up negative, that really doesn't tell us anything if there is still a heartworm there or not. The other reason that we want to have the cat on preventative is because there is no treatment for a cat with heartworm disease. There's a treatment for dogs, but there is no treatment for cats. So we want to, A, prevent that cat from ever being infected, and B, if it does have a heartworm, the heartworm preventative will help that cat to fight off, to kill that worm and eliminate that infection. So you should not need to have your cat tested. You should be able to contact your veterinarian and ask what heartworm preventatives for cats they have, and get your cat started on that right away, and you should be in good shape. All right. Destiny writes in to say, I have 2 cats and provide a separate litter box for each of them in different areas. I clean the litter boxes regularly, but one of my cats, who is spayed, continues to urinate and defecate right outside the litter box, even when the box has just been cleaned. I've tried using a vinegar solution on the affected areas, but it hasn't helped. What steps should I take to encourage her to use it consistently? All right, so cats not using the litter box is a common issue, and it has a lot of possible reasons and things that we need to think about for why that cat is not doing that. So our reasons for the cat to not use the litter box can be A, behavioral, or B, a medical problem. When we look at the behavioral causes, there's a few things to think about. The standard rule is that you should have 1 extra litter box per number of cats that you have. So you have 2 cats. In this case, you would want to have 3 litter boxes in the house. And that way it's important for cats to have a choice of where they want to go. So that may be all that the issue is. The You don't mention if your other cat is spayed or neutered, so that may play a role in some territoriality over the litter box. Some cats will decide that they are going to stake their claim on a litter box or some other object in the house, like a particular sofa cushion or something like that, and then they will just not allow the other cat to use the litter box. And they will be aggressive enough about it that even if they're not around, that cat will have learned, oh, I'm not allowed to go in there because the other cat will bully me. So they won't do that. So that's another thing to think about. The medical, oh, and then I should also say, we don't want to, if you have recently changed your litter, you want to go back to what you were using before, because cats can be very particular about the type of litter. Some cats will have a litter preference. So if this is a cat that's new to your house, you may actually have to set up some trial litter boxes with different types of litter to see which one your cat prefers to use. Some cats will refuse to use specific types of litter. The medical things to think about are, does this cat have some kind of urinary tract disease, an infection or inflammation of the bladder that is making them have to urinate more frequently? And with cats, when they have a medical issue, one of the first things that they will do is not use their litter box the way that they're supposed to. So that could be a cause of that. If we are also not defecating, not pooping in the litter box, that could indicate that perhaps we have some sort of a GI issue going on. So if increasing the number of litter boxes in your home and making sure that your cat likes the litter are not effective, you definitely want to have your cat checked out by your veterinarian and see what's going on from a medical standpoint that could be preventing them from doing what they are supposed to be doing. All right. Addie writes in to say, a stray mother cat recently brought her 3 kittens into our garage, where we've been providing food, water, bedding, and a safe place to stay. That is a lucky cat and kittens. Based on their appearance, I estimate the kittens are about 4 to 5 weeks old. One kitten has a significant wound near the front of its ear and another wound behind the ear that appears infected. Should I take the kitten to a veterinarian immediately, or could temporarily separating it from its mother cause her to reject or abandon it? What is the safest way to get the kitten treated and then reunite it with its mother? Okay, so good news. We've always heard about baby birds, and if you take them away, or wild animals, and if you take them away from the nest, that the mother will reject them. That is not the case with cats. So these kittens, if they are 4 to 5 weeks old, they are not far from the age where that mother cat's going to start weaning them off anyway. So a little bit of a separation between the kittens and the mama cat is coming up no matter what. So it will not be a problem for you to take that kitten to the vet and then bring the kitten back. The cat will be happy to see its kitten and be reunited with it again at this stage, and you should not see any kind of rejection or abandonment issues with the kitten. This is a 8 to 12 weeks of age is an important socialization time for kittens. It's how they learn to behave around other cats, and so it's good. You would not want to take that kitten and just take it away from mom. But I do recommend getting him treated with whatever he has going on here with his ear wounds, and then he can be returned to his mother, and that should all be just fine. Great question. Okay. Leo writes in to ask, is it safe and beneficial to spay a 9-year-old miniature dachshund? What are the main risks and benefits of spaying a dog at this age? All right, that is a great question. So when you say a 9-year-old pet, immediately the first thing people will start to say is he too old for anesthesia? Is it too much to put him through? And I've just had a birthday, and I'm going to say what I often say here is that old age is not a disease. So we do want to make sure your dachshund is healthy to undergo surgery and a procedure. When a dog is over 7 years old, they are considered senior citizens. Now, Old age is not a disease, but the older you get, the more common certain diseases become. Things like problems with your liver, things like problems with your kidneys. So we will want to check blood work on your dachshund before you go in for surgery. And that's going to let us look at all of your red and white blood cell levels, all of the dog's enzymatic systems in its body and its electrolytes, and make sure that there are no problems we need to be concerned about. We also want to make sure we listen to your dog's heart and lungs, and we don't hear a heart murmur or any kind of abnormal lung sounds. So, assuming that your blood work is normal and your physical exam on your dachshund is normal, there is no reason not to go under anesthesia and have a surgery. Now, will spaying a dog at this age benefit them? It is true that we get the most benefit from spaying dogs when they are younger. We eliminate heat cycles. We eliminate the risk of them getting pregnant. Not an issue here. We're 9 years old. That's not really what we're talking about. But it also will dramatically reduce the risk that they will get mammary cancer as they age. Now, once we get older, we don't really see that benefit anymore. But one of the benefits that we will see is eliminating the risk of pyometra. Now, pyometra, technically, if you break down those words, that means infected uterus. So what will happen in dogs as they get older is their uterus can undergo changes that make it more prone to getting an infection. And when that happens, these dogs can become very, very sick. And if it is a certain type of a pyometra called a closed pyometra, that can actually cause them to die, and they'll become very sick and die from that. So having your dog spayed now and having that uterus removed prevents you from having to have an emergency visit and emergency surgery on your dog should it get a pyometra, and that would cost you thousands of dollars. So the benefit of doing that procedure now while your dog is healthy and not having those kinds of problems is definitely safer for your pet because they're not sick, and it also will not be nearly as expensive as the alternative. So I would, assuming that we have normal blood work and a normal physical exam, I would be perfectly comfortable spaying this dog and think it would be a good idea to do that. All right, a question has come in here that says, do heartworms affect my dog from going into anesthesia? So the answer is no. If your dog is asymptomatic, which means that it's not showing any signs of heartworm disease, then there's no increased risk of under anesthesia of there being any kind of a problem. Now, what does asymptomatic mean? That means that your dog is acting perfectly normal, and unless we ran a heartworm blood test to tell that your dog was positive for heartworms, we would never know. So if that is the case with your dog, that it has a positive test but is otherwise showing no other symptoms, anesthesia is just fine for that pet. I routinely spay and neuter dogs that are heartworm positive but clinically healthy, otherwise healthy, pretty much every time I do surgery. So don't let that be a reason not to, as long as your pet is otherwise doing well. Great question. Rebecca writes in to say, I live in Texas, and with the summer heat getting so intense, I'm worried about keeping my dog and cat safe. What are some tips for protecting pets during hot weather, and what signs of overheating or heat stroke should I watch for? This is an excellent question again. Well, they're all excellent questions, but this is a very pertinent one right now because here in Texas, it is getting super hot where I am. The most important thing with our pets is to make sure that they always have access to fresh water. We don't ever want them to be without water. They're going to, their water requirements increase in the hot weather. We want to make sure that they have all the water they could possibly want to drink. So we want to make sure that they have access to water. We also want them to be able to get away from the heat. So they need to be able to get someplace where it's shady. If we can keep them in the house and air conditioned, this is the great time of the year to do that, so that they can get some rest. We also want to make sure that they are not standing on anything that is too hot, like pavement or the sidewalk or a concrete patio. It is very easy for dogs and for cats to get burns on their paws if there's not a way for them to get off of that onto a cooler surface. A good rule of thumb is put your hand on the surface your dog is going to be on. And if you want to not have your hand there for longer than a couple of seconds, you don't want your dog's paws to be there for very long either. This is a good time of the year when you walk your dogs or take them to the dog park or play with them, to do that early in the morning or later in the evening when there's not so much direct sunlight and it's still a little bit cooler. If your pet is having signs, is getting too hot, some of the things that you are going to notice is that they are excessively panting and drooling. They suddenly do not want to be as active as they were. And then we also especially want to watch out for them like collapsing and not wanting to get up. So those are signs that they have gotten way too hot. And in that case, you would want to get them someplace cooler immediately and head to an emergency clinic with your dog. A dog's normal temperature is 101.5 degrees. So dogs normally run a little hotter than us. And when they get into a heat stroke situation, their body temperature has raised up to somewhere over 106, 107 degrees. And that is a deadly temperature for a dog to be. So if you were to take a thermometer and do a rectal temperature on a dog that had heat stroke, you would see that that temperature would be very, very high, and that dog would need to be cooled off immediately. The other thing that you'll want to bear in mind is that if you have a brachycephalic dog, which means a dog with a mushed-in face, like a pug, a French bulldog, an English bulldog, a Shih Tzu, anything that has that kind of face where there's really no nose to speak of, those pets are at increased risk of overheating and developing heat stroke because they can have a problem moving air through their lungs to pant and cool themselves off as effectively as a dog that has a longer nose. So those animals definitely want to have a whole lot less exposure to the hot outdoors than even a dog with a standard visible kind of a snout. That is a great question. With my personal dogs this time of year, I will let them out in the morning and I'll let them out in the evening. I always make sure that they have fresh water, and then during the heat of the day, they need to go outside and do their business. They've got 20 minutes to get that done, and then they're back in the house. And that is what I do for them. Okay, Jewel has written in to say, my dog has been licking and chewing at his paws a lot lately, especially after coming inside. The skin between his toes look a little red, but I don't see any cuts. Could this be allergies, and when should I take him to the vet? All right. So if this is something that has happened lately, this time of year, you don't typically see it in the fall or in the winter time. What is probably happening is that your pet has either environmental allergies, so some kind of pollen in the air that is affecting them, or they have a contact allergy to the grass that they are walking on. With people, when our allergies act up, we get itchy eyes and an itchy running nose. With dogs, they get itchy paws and itchy ears. So seeing this redness on your dog's paws certainly indicates that we do have some kind of inflammation going on, and playing the odds, it is probably some kind of an allergy. So what you can do is, when your pet comes in from outdoors, if this is a contact allergy, meaning that they're just allergic to being in contact with that grass, go ahead and use a cool washcloth, a cool paper towel, and just clean between their paw pads and try to get any moisture that is built up in there away, and that will physically remove some of those irritants. If this is allergies, you will want to contact your veterinarian and see what will be the most effective treatment for your pet and its lifestyle while all of this is going on. Okay. Speaking of hot weather, Jay has written in to say that my cat was accidentally left outside on a balcony for several hours during a heat wave, and now his paw pads appeared burned and are peeling. He is limping and seems reluctant to eat or use the litter box. We have not been able to get him seen right away. What can I safely do at home to keep him comfortable until he can see a veterinarian, and what signs means he needs emergency care? Okay, so it's not hard for surfaces to become very hot, and if there's no way that our pets can get off of a hot surface, paw pads are a very common injury this time of year. And just like us, you can have different degrees of a burn. You have your first degree burns, which is just pain and redness and swelling, and that goes away pretty quickly. And then you can get into second and third degree burns, where the actual deeper tissues of the skin are damaged. And based on what you're describing with them appearing burned and that they are peeling, we probably have here at least a second degree burn, and that is a more serious kind of thing. Paws are always in contact with the ground, so that means that they are at increased risk of becoming infected while they are moving around and while they're trying to heal. So the most important thing that you can do for your pet at home is going to be to keep that area clean with just some very mild soap and water if your cat will allow you to do that. The other thing and by keeping that clean, we will hopefully help prevent it from getting infected until you can see your veterinarian. Your cat definitely needs to see a veterinarian because they probably need antibiotics, and they definitely want some kind of pain control medication while we are healing up from this. Burns are a painful thing. The other thing what we don't want to do, though, is give any kind of over-the-counter pain medication to our cats, because cats and human medications do not mix well. Cats, a lot of the things that we may use are actually very toxic to cats, so don't do anything like that. But we are going to do things that we can do to try to minimize our cat moving around and reduce any kind of risk of infection. So if we can keep our cat confined to a smaller room of the house, like the bathroom or some other area where it doesn't have to move around a lot, that will be a good thing. We also may consider replacing the cat's litter with just torn newspaper or shredded paper towels right now, so that we are not getting a bunch of dust from litter into those open wounds on our paws. That will help keep them clean as well and reduce the risk of infection. We also want to have the cat's food and water near where the cat is, so in that small confined area, so it doesn't have to go very far to eat. Cats that are in pain are reluctant to eat, so this is also a time when we will want to do things to encourage them to eat. So this is the time for what I call a stinky cat food buffet. So we'll give them anything that they feel like eating. So we're going to open some cans of cat food, different brands, and see what they are most likely to eat, so that they have an energy source to help them heal up while we're waiting to get into the veterinarian. If your cat stops eating and drinking entirely, then you definitely need to go to the emergency clinic. All right. Finally here, Jason has written in to say that my cat has been throwing up hairballs more often than usual, but she is still eating and acting normally. How often is too often, and when should frequent hairballs be checked by a veterinarian? All right, so hairballs, such a joy of cat ownership. So this can vary a lot from cat to cat, and there's lots of things that can affect the coughing up of hairball frequency. The standard answer would be that a hairball every 1 to 2 weeks is normal. Now, what are hairballs? Hairballs are formed when the cat grooms itself and it's pulling out hair from its coat, and it swallows that. And most of the time, the hair passes out through the intestinal tract and into the feces, and that's that. But it doesn't all do that. And sometimes there's a buildup of that hair in the stomach, and that is when the cat will cough up or vomit up a hairball. So what are some things that could make our frequency of hairball expulsion increase this time of year. One could be that if your cat, it's hotter, so your cat may be shedding. And if they're shedding, they're going to have more hair that is coming off of their body than normal. And that can increase how often they are that we're seeing the hairballs. So if you're able to brush your cat at this time of the year, if your cat will let you do that, that will help reduce the frequency of that. The other things, though, that can cause this would be that we have some type of a gastrointestinal problem, some kind of inflammation in our GI tract. It's good that we are eating and acting normally, so that makes me less concerned about that. But if we brush her, and then there are also, you can get at the pet store, you will find different hairball remedies, and these are typically things that are they come in like a tube of toothpaste, and it's a gel kind of thing, and it really kind of looks like toothpaste, but it's a laxative, and it's basically just a lubricant. And some of that can help reduce the cats with hairballs as well, because it just lubes up their gastrointestinal tract and makes the hair more likely to pass. So if those two things don't make a difference for you, definitely time to get your cat checked out. All right. That is all the time that we have today. We have some upcoming low-cost vaccine clinics with Spay Neuter Network. You can find all of the details at spayneuternet.org for that, and on our Facebook page. One that we do have coming up on July 8th, which is next Wednesday, will be at Green Pet in Dallas, Texas, and that will start at 6 p.m. Thank you so much for joining me for this Ask the Vet Live event. It is great to see everyone. Please stay cool out there, and please keep your animals cool. Bye-bye.